Did you watch the John Jones fight?
I did.
What'd you think?
I'm a fan of John's work inside the octagon. Obviously, outside it's a nightmare, but he's getting better inside. He's the greatest to ever do it.
Sure.
I was glad he came back.
Sure.
Nobody's going to beat him. Nobody's going to beat that guy.
Were you a little disappointed that it ended that fast?
No, I called it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I called it to a T. It was just the easiest matchup of his entire career. You're talking about a guy who's never fought a grappler, fighting arguably the best grappler we've ever had, and he has those that skill set that's just a nightmare for Cyril Gane. So it's an easy win for John.
Yeah, Cyril looked pretty impressive in other fights.
Yeah, but he never fought
striking.
a grappler. The only time he fought a guy who even engaged in grappling, he got taken down, that's Francis Ngannou, who can't grapple.
Right.
So my logic behind it, going with that prediction, is like, all right, if you got taken down, whatever, 6 times by a guy in Francis Ngannou who's probably a white belt, which isn't good, what's he going to do against John Jones?
You wouldn't know he's a white belt by looking at him, but I understand what you're saying.
You'd see the white belt.
Did you... what's Francis doing? What's he going on
He left
to?
the UFC, and he's banking on himself. So I think he's leaving the UFC. He said he left because he wants, fighter pay and, whatever other things he wanted Dana to commit to. He's like, I'm leaving for the betterment for the fighters. I think he has some sort of guarantee from either Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder to box. It sounds like the closest we can get is Deontay Wilder and Francis. There seems to be talks going on there because that's the fuck you money. That's UFC can't pay him high enough. They can't make up the ground. If he just fights Deontay Wilder once, he'd make more in that one fight, we think, than he would ever make fighting the UFC. That's why.
What do you think he'd get paid for another UFC heavyweight fight?
The UFC is very kind of their politics when it comes to stuff. They're politicians where they'll be able to navigate around it. So they said, well, we offered Francis Ngannou the highest amount of money we've ever paid a heavyweight. But we don't know what that means because we don't know the pay because Brock Lesnar was getting a pay-per-view percentage. And I heard he was getting up to 20, 30 million. But the UFC is not going to send that to Francis. They're going to say, hey, this is what we paid him on paper. Look, the Athletic Commission in California, here's the documents. We paid him $500,000. So we're going to pay you $600,000. It's the highest we've ever paid. So it's like, all right.
Yeah, and if he fights Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder...
It's a nightmare for him. But he makes tons of money.
It's over $25 million?
I'd like to think so. I would assume, yeah. That's why they're doing it. If Jake Paul and those guys can make that sort of money, I assume the best heavyweight on the planet leaving the UFC can do it. The only caveat there is people go, well, yeah, Conor did against Floyd. People forget Conor had the backing of the UFC, that marking machine. Francis can be on his own, which is kind of scary. So he's playing that game.